Have you ever stopped to think that maybe the biggest mistake we make is talking too much? We live in an era where everything needs to be explained, shared, justified. But what if the real power lies precisely in what you choose not to say? What if, in trying to be understood, you're actually handing over your weapons? There's an almost invisible strength in silence, a strength that the most strategic have always mastered. In this video, you won't hear obvious advice or ready-made phrases about communication. You'll hear a hidden map, a mental guide that connects philosophy, psychology, and power, and shows how silence, mystery, and restraint can transform you. Speaking is an almost biological need. We want to be heard, understood, embraced. But behind that desire lies a subtle trap, the excess of explanations. The more we justify ourselves, the more we reveal our insecurities, as if we're trying to convince others of something we don't fully believe ourselves. The impulse to explain is, most of the time, just a disguise for the anxiety of seeking acceptance. And that's where a weakness resides, in those who need to be understood to feel at peace. Machiavelli, a sharp observer of human nature and power games, understood that silence is not absence, but strategic presence. Few see what we are, but everyone sees what we appear to be, he said. When we speak too much, we offer not only information but also vulnerabilities. We reveal how we think, where we hurt, what we want, and without realizing it, we hand over our weapons. Excessive words are like a transparent curtain. It seems to protect, but reveals everything. Silence, on the other hand, is an invitation to doubt. And doubt is powerful. Those who speak little force others to imagine, fill in the gaps, try to interpret. And in that process, respect is born, sometimes even fear. What is not said carries weight. What is intentionally kept gains value. It's not about becoming an inaccessible enigma, but about understanding that there's power in restraint, wisdom in verbal economy, elegance in holding back. The truth is that those who talk too much try to fill the void with control. But real control is in not needing to fill anything. It's in knowing that silence unsettles, mystery protects, and the unspoken is often the highest form of strategic intelligence. Those who learn to speak less to others speak more to their own destiny. Silence is, for many, uncomfortable. It reveals what noise hides: anxiety, fear, the rush to be accepted. But for those who understand life as a strategic art, silence becomes a tool of mastery. Mastering one's own silence is not silencing out of submission, but out of choice, and that choice requires strength. Only those who have overcome the fear of seeming passive understand that there is more power in a pause than in a fiery speech. This mastery is invisible, almost spiritual. Amid the chaos of voices vying for attention, those who remain silent with awareness stand out effortlessly. It's as if the whole world leans in to hear what wasn't said. This paradox is fascinating. Active silence is more eloquent than nervous speech. It is not the absence of action but absolute presence. It's not about hiding but about positioning yourself wisely. Silent self-control is a force field. It repels the impulse to react, the need to prove something, the desire to win through shouting. Being strategic is knowing when to withdraw from the verbal arena and observe. Silence allows you to see beyond the obvious, perceive intentions, sense movement before it becomes a threat. It's like playing chess in slow motion while the other crashes emotionally on the board. Nietzsche wrote, "The maturity of man is to have regained the seriousness he had as a child at play." That silent seriousness is what turns someone into a master of the game. Those who master their own silence dominate not only the environment around them, but especially their internal turmoil. And when the world falls silent before you're calm, it's because it understands that there stands someone who needs to prove nothing. Only act at the right time. There is a seductive illusion that runs through our relationships. The belief that being understood is essential to being validated. And it's exactly in that yearning that one of the greatest losses of power lies. Over-explaining is like showing your cards before the round. You reveal intentions, fears, weaknesses, all things the other can use against you, even unconsciously. The need to be understood disguises itself as authenticity but is often a veiled request for approval. The pursuit of understanding is a mirror of the ego. We want the other to see us as fair, rational, coherent. But those who live to be understood hand over their narrative to others. And worse, become predictable. In a power game, those who explain too much lose the right to mystery. And without mystery there is no power. Those who reveal everything protect nothing. Those who say it all open the door to be manipulated, interpreted, reduced. The alternative? Observe. Instead of justifying yourself, listen. Instead of rushing to explain, wait. Silence in this context is a shield. While you speak to be understood, the other speaks to expose themselves, and that's where you win. Observing without haste lets you understand the game from the inside, see what the other can't hide while trying to figure you out. Power lies in letting the other reveal themselves while you remain whole. Classical wisdom once taught, know thyself, and that includes knowing your urge to be understood. Freeing yourself from that is freeing yourself from external control. Being misunderstood is sometimes a gift. Because while they underestimate you, you choose where it truly matters to be clear. In your actions, your results, your consistency. Other people's understanding is volatile. Your posture is not. There's a visceral urge to speak the truth, especially when it burns in your throat like a stifled scream. The feeling of being right, of holding a piece of information that could set everything straight, is tempting. But there's a hidden trap in that desire. Truth said at the wrong time doesn't free, it exposes. And when exposed without strategy, truth becomes ammunition. Those who listen don't always do so with neutrality. Often they listen with interest, ego, intentions. There is something deeply strategic in choosing when and how to use the truth. Saying everything you think isn't courage, it may just be lack of calculation. Not every confrontation deserves your energy, let alone your essence. Truth is a rare currency, and giving it away in any exchange is emotional impoverishment. Knowing when to be silent is recognizing that sometimes, silence is the most sophisticated shield against ignorance and manipulation. Saying the right thing at the wrong time is like lighting a match in a storm. The intention may be good, but the result will be in vain or worse, dangerous. In emotional disputes, the other doesn't want to understand your truth, they want to defeat it. And in that kind of battle, those trying to prove something end up drained. Holding back in this context is not omission, it's preservation. It's distinguishing what is necessary from what is just an impulse. Truth has its own timing. And when the right moment comes, it imposes itself without needing to be shouted. Seneca once said, "Not every silence is cowardice, just as not every word is courage." Knowing how to discern between the two is what separates the wise from the impulsive, the strategist from the reactive. Choose your battles. Not every confrontation deserves your truth, and not every truth needs to be said, some just need to be lived. We live in a culture that glorifies speed. Quick answers, instant reactions, real-time decisions. But those who master the game of life don't act on impulse, they act on calculation. Hurry is often the mask of fear. Those who rush to respond, to act, to prove, are often trying to escape the discomfort of seeming idle. The strategist, meanwhile, observes. They understand that time is not an enemy but a silent ally. And sometimes, doing nothing is doing everything. Machiavelli, who saw the world through the eyes of politics and psychology, said coldness was a precision weapon. And this has nothing to do with insensitivity. It's about not being led by the first emotion. The strategist breathes while others rush. They know the first move is rarely the most effective. And that real power lies in intelligent waiting, the kind that prepares the ground for the exact moment to strike or retreat. Strategic patience is not passivity, it's scenario reading. Those who wait with awareness perceive patterns, listen between the lines, anticipate intentions. And when they finally act, they don't need to repeat themselves or explain. Because their action comes like a precise arrow. Unexpected, direct, silently devastating. While the fool wastes energy moving around, the strategist gains strength by staying still, until the environment bends to their decision. Eastern wisdom says, sit by the river and soon you'll see your enemy's body float by. This image isn't about revenge but about perspective. Waiting isn't wasting time. It's recognizing that time reveals, reorganizes, exposes. And most of all, teaches. Those who act in haste often undo what they wanted to build. Those who wait with clarity build without needing to rush. There's a discomfort in admitting that we are manipulable. That our certainties are often born more from what we feel than from what we know. Emotions are shortcuts the mind uses to save energy. And where there's a shortcut, there's vulnerability. Anger, fear, anxiety, pride. All these emotional states can be triggered by external stimuli. And the most dangerous part, the more we deny this influence, the more easily we are led without realizing it. Those who control their emotions are not cold, they are lucid. It's not about suppressing what you feel, but about observing with critical distance. Anger, for example, may seem like strength, but it's almost always an invitation to recklessness. Anxiety may look like productivity, but it's often just disguised desperation. The ego, when inflated, screams for recognition, and hands control to anyone who knows how to inflate or hurt it. Those who don't understand their own emotional mechanisms will be turned against themselves by anyone who does. The game of life, whether professional, emotional, or social, is rarely fair. Because it's not moral. It's mental. Who wins is not the one who's most right but the one who has the most control. Those who understand that others are emotional too, and know how to guide them, win arguments without raising their voice, influence decisions without seeming authoritarian. The true strategist doesn't react, they lead. And only those who've overcome the addiction to emotionally react to everything can lead. As Epictetus said, it's not things that disturb us but our judgment of them. That judgment is shaped by poorly regulated emotions. And those who learn to tame their inner state discover the power of remaining unshaken, centered, responding with presence instead of impulse. In the end, the mind is a battlefield. And whoever wins that silent war, masters all others. We live as if truth were a self-sufficient entity. As if being truthful were enough to be recognized, respected, followed. But the real world runs on a different logic. Perception. And perception builds reputations that are often more influential than facts. Reputation is not what you are but what others believe you are. And it's based on that image that the world reacts to you, supports you, attacks you, or ignores you. This may seem unfair at first glance, but it's an invisible law of human interaction. Truth is intimate, silent, internal. Reputation is public, noisy, shaped by appearances. And that's why so many fall, because they focus on being truthful but neglect how they're perceived. Machiavelli understood this with brutal precision. He knew that symbols, gestures, and silences shape a man's authority more than his sincere convictions. Silence in this context is a sculpting tool. Those who talk too much explain too much and expose too much. Those who know how to be silent create space for others to project admiration, fear, or respect. A well-built reputation is like an invisible armor. It protects even when the truth has not yet been revealed. And often, the truth itself adjusts to the power of that image, as if pulled by the gravity of reputation. Pascal's phrase resonates here with precision. Men are so necessarily mad that not to be mad would be another kind of madness. Protecting your reputation is acknowledging that the world doesn't always reward the most truthful, but almost always reveres the best presented. The point isn't to lie, it's to shape the narrative consciously. Because in the end, your reputation will be remembered long before your truth is understood. Predictability is comfortable but dangerous. It gives others a map of your behavior, and with a map in hand, anyone can plan your defeat. Human beings tend to repeat patterns, to respond automatically, to follow familiar paths. And the more predictable you become, the more vulnerable you are. Power, therefore, lies in mystery. In being a presence that cannot be easily read or controlled with formulas. Unpredictability is not a game of appearances but of awareness. It's knowing when to break patterns, when to act outside the curve, when to be silent where you'd usually speak. This strategic deviation confuses, destabilizes, and above all, protects. Those who can't predict your next move hesitate to attack. And in hesitation they lose power. Sun Tzu said, "Be as unfathomable as the night." Because what is not understood cannot be confidently confronted. But here's an essential detail. Being unpredictable doesn't mean being inconsistent. Coherence is the foundation of respect. Unpredictability is the seasoning of authority. A truly unpredictable person knows exactly what they're doing, they just don't reveal their methods. They choose when to surprise, when to act with silence, when to invert expectations. That requires self-control, situational awareness, and above all, emotional independence. The habit of constantly exposing yourself, of over-explaining, of wanting to be read like an open book, weakens your very presence. Power lies in being a little enigmatic, not to manipulate but to protect. As Oscar Wilde said, with sharp irony, to be natural is such a very difficult pose to keep up. And perhaps that's why being naturally unpredictable is one of the most refined forms of freedom. Because only those who no longer depend on the approval of the social script can be unpredictable. Fragility, when well interpreted, can be an ingenious trap. Most see weakness as something to be avoided, hidden, or denied. But those who master the games of power know, appearing weak is often the best way to hide your strength. When you show vulnerability by choice, you lower the other's guard, they feel safe, comfortable, even superior. And in that careless space, the most precise reading takes place. To underestimate someone is, in practice, to give them an advantage. Because when you feel above, you stop paying attention. And that's what the strategist waits for. Those who appear weak aren't giving up on the battle, they're watching in silence. Observing mistakes, identifying patterns, gathering data. Machiavelli said that the appearance of weakness can be a useful disguise, and that allowing yourself to be underestimated is clearing the path for a precise, unexpected strike. The power of seeming harmless lies in the freedom to move unnoticed. No one blocks the way of someone who is not seen as a threat. And that's why the one who walks quietly, pretending not to know, may go further than the one who announces their competence with every step. In competitive environments, being perceived as weak is gaining time. And time is all a strategist needs to turn the game around. Nature has already taught us this through silent masters. The owl, the octopus, the tiger, they all know to hide before attacking. The same applies to human relationships. As Lao Tzu said, all power resides in what is not seen. When you appear weak, you're not lying, you're protecting. And perhaps, preparing the exact moment when surprise will be your deadliest ally. We live in times when everything is announced. Every step, every plan, every partial win. But the true strategist understands that noise is the enemy of precision. The more you speak, the more you're distracted. The more you expose yourself, the more you're at risk. There is a subtle and deeply effective elegance in simply staying silent. In not giving explanations, not forecasting expectations, not inflating promises. In acting in the dark and letting the light come only with the results. Winning in silence is an act of confidence. Confidence in your process, in your perception, in your pace. It's like someone preparing a chess move for weeks without telling anyone until, in a single move, they shift the entire board's dynamics. That posture is not arrogance, it's maturity. Because those who need to talk all the time about what they're going to do probably still don't know how to do it. Silence, at that stage, stops being tactical and becomes identity. It is the signature of someone who understands that the world listens more to actions than to promises. That applause shouldn't be bought with expectation but earned with impact. And that the sound of true victory doesn't come from the mouth of the victor, but from the inevitable reaction of those who witness the result without warning. As Baltasar Gracian wrote, the wise man doesn't say everything he thinks, but thinks everything he says. Winning in silence is taking control of your own narrative without saying a word. It is making your success the only speech you need. And in that silent speech, there is an authority that no shout can reach. Because the result speaks. And when it speaks, the world goes silent. In the end, it all boils down to a single question. Are you in control? Or are you being led? Because true strength never lies in the volume of your voice, but in the clarity of your presence. Being strategic isn't about manipulation, it's about not being manipulated. And that requires a rare kind of courage. The courage to be silent when everyone shouts, to observe when everyone reacts, to act when no one expects. The world doesn't need to know what you're doing. It just needs to feel the impact of what you've done. So now I ask you, how many times have you given away your advantage? Just for wanting to be understood? How many victories have you let slip? By speaking too soon? And if you want to continue this journey toward clarity and inner power, there's more content waiting for you on the screen. Subscribe, turn on notifications. And shut up. The next move is yours and no one needs to know what it will be.